What's up, everybody? I am back doing the movie review of the Avengers films, starting with the first one. And it's fun to come back to this because when it came out, it was like one of the best movies I've seen. Well, of course, The Dark Knight came around this time as well, and I think, yeah, it was like those two biggest Marvel and DC films that hit the screens. It was like a hell of a time for movies that year, but I watched this quite a few times, since it came out. But it's been a while, so it's fun to revisit the first Avengers film because it set a freaking tone, and they just recently, it was the stupidest promo for Avengers Doomsday that they ever did. I didn't even bother to make a reaction video with it because it's like a crazy long video with just them showing uh chairs with the actors' names on them, and it's like, who bright idea was that? That was so lame, and they're getting clowned for that. And it's like, anyway, I mean, like Marvel seriously have been falling off. Uh, but in celebration of rewatching what kicked this entire thing off in the first place, I am trying out Swarma for the first time. I got like a let's see, like got the word Swarma on it. Yeah, there you go. So I didn't get the lamb, so I got chicken instead. So this is me trying out Swarma for the first time. So I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about it, but I don't know. I'm gonna give it a try. So this is my first, you watching my first like me trying out this particular food. So here we go. Hmm. Yeah, that's not bad. Hmm. I don't know what I was expecting, but just like with the Szechuan sauce with Rick and Morty, the Avengers really put Swarma on the map for a good period of time. And of course, it was like the you see in the end credits, I'm just sitting in silence eating Swarma. Thanks, Tony. So let me get taking another bite of this before I go through my review. Well, yeah, like I said, it's not bad. It's not one of those foods that kind of blows me away or anything like that, but it's pretty solid. Uh yeah, I hit the gym earlier today, so uh it kind of built up an appetite. So in case. So yeah, man. It's still fun. I mean, like, I'm not gonna bury the lead. It still holds up, but once again, of course, it was directed by Joss Whedon. The first two Avengers films were directed by Joss Whedon. Of course, at the time, we didn't know how much of an asshole he really was. I mean, a few people knew, but that was pretty much like no one would probably believed him, and he was kind of born with a silver spoon up his ass. So it's like, He was kind of untouchable at that time up until the first Justice League kind of rolled around. Uh, in any case, this movie made over $1 billion. You know why? And of course, at that time, because I still remember that people were so worried because this was like we knew this was coming, but it was such untested grounds that you had like a blueprint set up where you put individual films of different characters that you will have to smush together eventually. But could you make that work? This was, like I said, uncharted territory. But miraculously, uh, Kevin Feige and Joss Whedon and people behind Marvel Studios managed to pull it together. It was amazing. And of course, uh, people have their issues with Avengers 2, but I actually really dig Avengers 2. But I'll get to that next week when I review that. But, in the preceding Avengers films, they keep one-upping themselves up until like Endgame. We'll see how Doomsday and Secret Wars will turn out. But like I said, like in my while I was streaming yesterday, I was a little concerned with because once they made those announcements of those people with names on their chairs, it's like how I couldn't find myself getting excited with half of those people because they really haven't earned that level of excitement. Because as somebody was pointing out, I was watching like their reaction to this kind of situation. It was like put it succinctly that when they was marketing Doomsday, teasing the names and stuff who's gonna be in it, they treated it like it was 2012 or 2014 or 2016, where you can just show chairs with names on it and it will generate the same level of hype as Infinity War and Endgame has. But they lost a lot of goodwill with a lot of people. And even me, who liked a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there was still quite a few stuff in Phase 4 and 5 that I actually legit had a good time with. But I cannot deny the fact that they were slipping way too often to have earned that level of goodwill with just showing chairs with names on it and it being good enough. They had to show something more. The names, at least like I said, half of the names, it would be interesting to see them back. Like a few of the old cast members who was in the earlier X-Men films, like Rebecca Romijn as Mystique and Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. And it's like, oh snap, Alan Cumming, haven't been Nightcrawler in years, coming back as that character. That'll be fun. Because he had one of the best scenes in the X-Men franchise as a whole. Still don't know about Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He's probably just going to show up in Secret Wars. But, and Channing Tatum's Gambit, like, we kind of suspected he'll be coming in because that's what they kind of tease at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine. So those parts, at least for me, I was like, okay, that generated some interest. But all the other stuff, like, yeah, we all know Anthony Mackie is going to be in there. That's not really a big whoop. Simu Yu as Shang-Chi, I'm still not like a huge fan because it's like you kind of dropped the ball on that character ever since this movie. Didn't really earn, or at least pay off his end credit scene with those rings and like leaving some kind of beacon to what? You didn't pay that off. You left it on the table. They wasn't handling things smartly to interconnect it all together. They was throwing things at the wall, pretty much. Anyway, back to the first film. Like I said, I kind of veered off for a second. Of course, we got Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Chris Evans, Captain America, Mark Ruffalo, Hulk, and it's the first time us seeing like a new Hulk because Edward Norton in his Hulk film that is a part of the MCU. He had his own little issues where he's trying to take over, you know, throwing his weight around too much. Where, I mean, they was building to something and they could not have his ego get in the way of that, so they just ultimately got him replaced with Mark Ruffalo, who at that time I did not recognize him before any of this, up until when I rewatched the movie Collateral that I did a movie review on for the channel. It kind of sprung. Oh, so I did see Mark Ruffalo and stuff before. He was just looked very differently in those other things, and I didn't really pay attention. He wasn't like a super mega star at that time. So technically, when this came out, this at that time was my first introduction to Mark Ruffalo, and I was a little, miffed and like a little pressed because like I know of Edward Norton and I like a lot of movies he was in. He's a great actor, and I didn't know who Mark Ruffalo was, and it's like, who's this dude? And it's like he doesn't look like a skinny, Bruce Banner type. But eventually, it kind of warmed up to him, and he pulled off one of the most amazing scenes in this film that's still held in high regard. We got Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Stellan Skarsgård as Eric Selvig, Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill. And a little fun fact, Morena Baccarin, who you know as Vanessa in the Deadpool films, was on the short list to play Maria Hill, but lost to Kobe Smulders. So it's funny that how things kind of circle back around. Anyway, after the events of the first first Thor film, where Loki seemingly had died, but he ran. He ended up in space where he bumped into. It's called the Other. They didn't really. In terms of like know nothing characters, he was probably one of the most know nothing characters in this film. Where apparently he was part of like an alien race of the Chitauri, who probably has the intelligence to rally some forces from his home planet. Who's, I won't say mindless, but kind of sort of mindless. And he is like one of the underlings of Thanos, because Thanos was coming. It's like now really a big tease. But of course, we didn't know who he's going to be played by Josh Brolin at the time. And not at least until Age of Ultron, where we knew exactly what was up. At least I don't think we knew he was going to be Josh Brolin at the time. Anyway, so Loki ended up making a deal because he wants to. He sees himself as king. He wants to rule. He needs a army force. So they want the Tesseract that's on Earth, and if in exchange they will help him rule over that planet. It means nothing to Thanos because he just wants those stones. And it's the same kind of thing same kind of arrangement he has with Ronan the Accuser. Oh crap! Now I'm thinking about it. Have I reviewed? I'm pretty sure I've reviewed all the Guardians films on my channel. Because did I slip up on that one? Because I want to make sure like I had all the other singular films before I got into the Avengers films. So I can just go boom, 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 boom. Oh, and by the way, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. I'm 3 subs away from 500. Once we get to that point, I will be doing like uh, well, I have a poll up on the channel. You can choose whether or not you want me to do an 8-hour stream in celebration, 12 or 24 hours in celebration. Yeah, I did. Okay, I just had to make sure because I've been doing a lot of movie reviews over the years, so it's kind of like you tend to forget. Uh, anyway, uh, and by the way, I also been making sure like I going through certain significant Avengers comics that kind of that definitely inspired these films, or at least these films took inspiration from. Currently, right now, I'm going through like a Fantastic Four comic that hopefully by the end of next week I will be doing like a review on. But uh, I did my review on the Marvel Comics first Avengers team up stuff, which is up on the channels. You know, only did like a few weeks ago. I did my review video on it, and because they teamed up because of Loki, but the comic, well, they definitely brought elements from the comic and they kind of expanded it into like a their own spin on it. Because in the comic, Loki utilizes the Hulk in order to try to get to entice Thor to come to him, so he can do battle with his brother, and it generated all the other Avengers kind of come together. I mean, you check out my comic book review on that first Avengers comic. You can hear my overall thoughts on that. But here, they still took that bit of element, but they kind of expounded upon it a bit. Um, so, uh, as we saw at the end of the Thor film, we see Loki kind of manipulating Eric Selvig behind the scenes, who's been tasked by Nick Fury to run experiments on the Tesseract. So, it while experimenting on it, they cause like a wormhole because the Tesseract is, I think it's the Space Stone, I believe. It causes like a wormhole that teleports Loki through it, and so using the scepter that coincidentally we know later will have the Mind Stone inside to help him mind control Selvig and Hawkeye, which just so you know, Hawkeye in the comics used to be a kind of sort of bad guy. It was kind of like a rogue or anti-hero at first, right along with Black Widow, but eventually becomes a good, become good people and works with Shield and stuff like that. Here they kind of uses this. We got like Black Widow talking about the getting the red off her ledger thing kind of stuff that will pay off eventually in Endgame, but we get a little bit of Clint being like a bad guy. They kind of like, jump through hoops just to still get a little bit of that to honor from the comics history with this character. So we have Clint doing like bad things under the mind control of Loki, and they take the Tesseract, but they needed I don't know what that thing's called off the top of my head. 1 second here. This iridium in order to stabilize it, because it's a bridge pretty much. They only can probably open up one little space for one person at a time. That's not good enough for Loki for the task he needs it for. So now that Shield's been compromised, Tesseract is stolen, and uh, a few agents, along with Hawkeye and Selvig, has been kidnapped. The Avengers Initiative has been activated. So Phil goes to Tony, who he had more interactions, well, just about as much interactions as Black Widow and Fury has, or slightly more. To the point where him and Pepper Potts are like on like a first name basis. It was kind of funny how Tony's reaction, like Phil, it was like a funny interaction. And then Black Widow goes to not Katmandu, Cole something, Calcutta, to because they eventually track down Bruce Banner, who been on the run and not hasn't been the Hulk for a little over a year, even though the kind of undercuts the end of the Incredible Hulk film. But I guess at that time, that Hulk film wasn't held in that big of regards. I rewatched that, and I think a lot of people over time, uh, appreciate it a little bit more now. But at the end of that, he, seemed like he's fully embracing, at least trying to work in tandem with the Hulk instead of try to fight against him or try to get rid of him. But that kind of, like I said, undercuts that narrative, which, like I said, at the time, it made sense because not many people looked at it very favorably. But now it's kind of like, it is what it is. But kind of now you can say, I kind of wish they didn't ignore that part. But they kind of circle back around to now we got Smart Hulk. Anyway, and then Fury goes to Cap, who's pretty much adjusting to life in the modern world. There is a deleted scene where, leading up to the moment where you see him in the gym hitting the punching bag, he is just trying to sit down for coffee, looking around, see all this modern technology with people with cell phones and everything like that. He's just taking it all in, but it is kind of overwhelming because he is a man out of time. All the stuff he knew, he's been left back into the 40s. So he's well over 100 years old and in like a modern world that he's trying to get used to his new circumstances. So they need Banner because since the Tesseract has some levels of gamma radiation, they can use him to, since he's a leading expert on gamma radiation, he can track where the Tesseract might be, and also where hopefully Loki might be. Then try to get Cap, to get in and help them retrieve it and stop Loki. He also has intel about the Tesseract because he's seen it in action back in the 40s. He's the only one that has that kind of knowledge. And of course, they need Tony's genius skills in order to to help with all the extra tech stuff that will help with Banner at the same time. So Loki, I love this funny part when they end up on the helicarrier because this is the nuanced details that smart writers do, where the fact that Steve mentions to Fury is like, after the stuff I saw, I don't think that anything will surprise me at this point. And Fury is like, I got $10 that says this. I bet you $10 that's not true. And then as soon as he walks on the helicarrier and see it, come out of the water and starts flying, he pulls out $10 and just immediately hands it to Fury without saying nothing. And that still gets a laugh out of me because like that little finer details is the fact that you put in that little moment shows that you are paying attention. And I miss smart writing like that, and we are sadly missing that in the MCU as of late. Hopefully they come around to that, but and a lot of people are saying like they should after Secret Wars they should just completely just start over, and it's like even if they do, what will stop what will stop them from history repeating itself once they get too big for their britches all over again? And probably running the same problem 15 years down the line if this thing is still going. Uh, uh, when they probably have Miss Marvel doing the exact same thing as like Scarlet Witch, where it's like all of a sudden turned to a bad guy, and it's like no rhyme or reason for most people, and then you know it's just nothing connecting. So you might like I said, I'm using it as an example, but it's like who's to say they won't run into the same problem? Anyway, uh, oh, what else happened? Okay, so uh, uh, they eventually track down Loki, who's in Germany, ironically for Steve. So he steals eye of some dude in this fancy room that they I want to say auctioning off they some kind of gala where the iridium is at. So he needs to unlock it with a curator or somebody had it and needs like the ID, and he takes out his eye, unlocks it, forces it, try to force everybody to kneel except one guy who lived through the 40s, and it's like, the last, and then of course Steve comes in and he messes like the last time, a guy in Germany trying to make everybody kneel didn't work out so well for him, and of course, uh, it was fun to see like, uh, Cap taking on Loki. It was like, wow, we're doing this. Oh, wow, we're really doing this. Then here comes Tony. Of course, Tony does, comes in with playing some rock ballad. Uh, uh, and then Loki just surrenders, which doesn't sit too well with Tony and Steve because it seems way too easy. Then, while they're trying to ride back with their prisoner to the helicarrier, Thor comes, breaks into the ship, and snatches Loki, while Steve and Iron Man chase after him. And of course, you get one of the iconic lines from Iron Man: "I have a plan, attack." And they go after him, and Thor is trying to beseech to Loki's inner angels. They're like, "Hey, stop this! Uh, uh, we thought you were dead. We were mourning you, and like, you know, uh, like, I understand you're angry, but it's like, why you want to hurt me? It's like we raised as brothers together. It's like we've been through battle and all this other stuff. You remember none of that stuff. And of course, Loki only sees himself walking in the shadows of Thor's greatness, and it's just like a hurt kid that Odin probably to some degree kind of neglected, and probably only I want to say saw him as like an adopted kid, but he knew full well he wasn't going to let an ice giant sit on the throne of Asgard. But you kind of misled him to thinking that it's a possibility. But you knew full well you was going to do that. And of course, it caused like some animosity in these children that kind of was seeded and then kind of cultivated over time as they grew older. Uh, then Iron Man comes in, tackles Thor, and Thor is telling him like, "Stay out of my way. I'm taking him back to Asgard so he can face Asgardian justice." And Iron Man's like, "Yeah, you can have him after we get what we need from him." But then it causes like this awesome fight where stupidly Thor sends down lightning at Iron Man, who gets his battery quadruple charged, so he just unibeams the hell out of Thor. And it's it's like a fun fight. Don't get me wrong. then Cap comes in, tells like, you know, if you're not a threat, put the hammer down. You want me to put the hammer down? And of course, Mjolnir hits the shield. It causes like a massive shockwave, with which will pay off again in the beginning of Avengers 2 when they do like a team up thing. Uh, which I appreciate, because every time I see them utilizing their powers with with each other, it kind of reminds me of the Marvel Alliance games when their powers kind of like combine and makes a cool like thing. Like in the New York battle, you see like Iron Man shoots his beam at Steve's shield and kind of spreads the beam spreads out to other enemies. You see that in Marvel Avengers Alliance game, the second one, and you get to pull off that same move. Or they actually did it in the first one too. But you know what I'm talking about. Uh, so yeah, it's like a fun little thing that I always love seeing. Anyway, they finally stopped their bickering. Uh, so they take Loki on the helicarrier, and uh, uh, and they all suspect that Loki's up to something because he just willingly give himself up, not seem intimidated at all, and we still have no clue where Hawkeye or Sylvie or Tesseract is, because he just sent the Tesseract off. He knows not where. So now they're kind of like just stuck. And I love the whole jab at Thor and Tony calls him Point Break, and that pays off in Thor Ragnarok where he gives him the code name or password Point Break as his Avengers passcode, which annoys Thor. uh, so, um, uh, 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 eventually, Black Widow manages to get because she's such a great spy, and the fact that Loki's surprised that not many people can sneak up on him like that, and she just like pops up trying to get intel, and because she's such a good spy, she managed to get him to give up the goods. Which you let him talk enough, you'll get intel from him probably pretty easily. But she realizes that Hulk was his like ultimate goal, because like in the comics, when the Avengers first teamed up, he was utilizing the Hulk in order to facilitate his overall scheme. So they kind of do the exact same, well, kind of sort of the same thing here in the film. Uh, uh, so, uh, uh, Steve, Banner, and Tony, you know, all because they never met each other before. Of course, there's a little, animosity, because they used to being like calling us shots in their own way. But now they have to work in tandem with each other. Uh, and of course, the early rivalry between Steve and Tony, where Tony's very nonchalant about everything, but they bring up to Steve's attention because before the whole situation with the Winter Soldier and Hydra and all the other stuff that will eventually come up, he believes that because he comes from the 40s, he believes that America always have like good intentions. They fight the war. They knew who the bad guys was, but they have to bring to his attention that you don't think it's a little fishy that why did Fury call us in before all this popped off? Why did it have to be right now? So, Steve, went and snuck around and looked through some stuff, and And while Tony and Banner has like a little heart to heart, Tony brings up to Banner, it's like all that gamma radiation should have killed you. So uh, the Hulk easily has saved your life. And it's like they don't know what for, but maybe we'll find out. Which, once again, it will pay off in Endgame, where Smart Hulk utilizes the gauntlet in order to snap everybody back uh, on Earth. So it's like I was made for this. I kind of wish they would have shared a glance in that film to like a nice little callback to this moment in the first Avengers film, where they don't know what the Hulk saved his life for, but now that they know, kind of it's like it was probably for this. This is like the Hulk's moment kind of situation. Um, but then as they were scanning the scepter, uh, Steve was questioning Fury. Is like, you want to explain why this tech is here? Because you found some. Uh, they find out ultimately that Fury and Shield was planning on turning the Tesseract into a weapon, which didn't sit right with with Steve, because he saw how Hydra had used it and easily could have planned on taking over the world if he didn't stop them. And now he's seen that America and Shield, by extension, is no better than them, because they could easily turn to global domination, and he could just like he said, left it in the ocean. But Fury points out that he only doing this because he points at Thor because of him, and Thor doesn't understand what's going on, because he says that not only we realize we're not the only sentient life on Earth, but we're dealing with powers that's well beyond us, and we will be laughably outclassed. Just with Asgardians alone, who have like strength, semi-immortality, sort of invincibility, they can easily overwhelm us just by themselves. Anything greater than even them, Earth will be annihilated. So we need something to be able to defend ourselves. But Steve thinks there's a coward's way out. Then, of course, Tony chimes in, and they all look at him. It's like, how did you make your billion, Stark? And then Steve points out to him, which I think a lot of people think is very uncharacteristic of Steve in this moment, where he kind of, his ego was like shown quite a bit, but maybe just the fact that Tony's nonchalant attitude doesn't sit right with him, because he seems kind of selfish in a way. Like, you're not the type that will jump on the wire and let your fellow man walk over you. And it's like, I would rather cut the wire. And it's like, always way out. And it's like they immediately start beefing. And then they look over to Banner. And it's like, we're not a team. We're a ticking time bomb. You want to know how I remain so calm. You want to know how I got to keep it all together? And they all see him like grabbing the hold of the scepter, which at first watch in the theater way back in the day, nobody really noticed. I definitely didn't notice until after the rewatch, where you see him actually walk back and you see his arm, reach behind him. It was kind of subtle at first, I guess. At least most of us probably saw that very subtle. I'm pretty sure more eagle-eyed viewers kind of peeped that immediately. But it was all a manipulation. I think, not only by Loki, but also with like the Mind Stone, because it's kind of like, messing around and kind of agitating their natures or their emotions. But then Barton shows up with other mind control foes. shoots an arrow, knocks out one of the engines, causes like a complete like wreck. Uh, Banner starts turning into the Hulk, which freaks out Black Widow. You see her kind of shaking and nervous because she's never seen something like that before, and she normally doesn't get nervous like that. And but she had to collect herself and stop Clint. While uh, Tony and Steve try to get the engines back online, or at least one of them working, so they won't crash uh, to the ground. And I love the little moment where uh, this gets some funny little dynamics with Steve. It's like the like I understood that reference. I mean, that little moment that's funny, but also where Tony's trying to direct him to like a panel because he's gonna uh, push manually the spinning gears while Steve makes sure that he pulls a lever to slow it down so he can get enough time to get out of there before he gets shredded. And then you see like, Steve points out about the panels like it seems to be running on some sort of electricity. Well, you're not wrong. I still quote that to this day because it's so freaking funny. Because I think everybody in the theater, I still remember everybody in the theater was laughing their ass off because it was like you can't argue with him because technically he is right. It does run on electricity, so you have to like dumb it down so he can do what he needs to do, so they can keep the place afloat long enough so it won't crash into a major city, while Fury and the other Shield agents trying to direct it at least towards the water so it won't cause like a major disaster. Mind you, by the way, half of these people are probably Hydra agents, but it's still under cover. Even the people that we see Fury talk to this console, a few of them, at least one of them, was like Hydra, whatever. Like obviously Stillwell is. Um. So Thor ends up getting into a fight with Hulk, which we kind of wanted to see a Hulk versus Thor fight, and it didn't disappoint. Uh, but Hulk ends up getting well, he kind of jumped out trying to get one because Fury or Widow gets one of the jet fighters to lure him out, but of course, Hulk jumps on top of him. He ends up crashing to the ground. While Thor is trying to make sure Loki's still in his cage. Of course, he ends up, managed to get out thanks to Clint using like a USB drive arrow to circuit everything, at least enough of things so Loki can walk out. And of course, he ends up getting tricked and falling into Loki's cage. While Coulson has Loki cornered with this big ray gun thing. But once again, another misdirect. And it's still like a lot of people still reeling. It was like shocking because like we didn't expect that, where Loki stabs Coulson in the back, mortally wounding him. And everybody, because about shouted and screamed as much as Thor was in the film, and I was like, "Oh my god, I like him." It was kind of like you watching Game of Thrones or something. It's like, no, we all really liked him. Sorry, I was double checking my phone. Like, we already like Coulson. Don't do this. Of course, he shows up back again, very I won't say haphazardly. The payoff of him coming back to life in the Agents of Shield show wasn't all that satisfying. And like I said, like the first two seasons was pretty solid, but it kind of really went off the rails in the latter seasons, really unwatchable, unfortunately. So if you want to like actually check out the Agent of Shield show, I would rather you just stick to the first two seasons and just stop there. It doesn't get any better. Anyway, but Coulson, manages to still breathe after Loki presses the button to cast out the cage from the shield carrier to drop Thor, who managed to get out in nick of time before the whole thing crashes to the ground. And I'm thinking like, you're a demigod, and I doubt that will kill you. But whatever. So Thor and Hulk, the biggest heavy hitters, are not on the ship anymore. But Coulson managed to let off one shot on Loki, but he managed to escape. But Clint and I'm about to say Wanda. Clint and Natasha ends up fighting, and she ended up bumping his head, which kind of shakes loose the mind control. Very convenient, but don't need to overcomplicate it. So he comes to. Sorry. He comes to, and Fury lets everybody know that Phil Coulson died. He had these little trading cards in his pocket that he really wanted Steve to like sign for him because he's like a huge Captain America fan, but he never got a chance to when all this went down. This, you know, very sullen moment, which, like I said, I hate to keep bringing this up, but looking back on this stuff, you see how far the mighty have fallen with Marvel Studios, where nothing's undercut with a stupid joke. They let a serious moment play out in enough time when it needs to. Let it breathe. It's like a sorrowful moment that we lost an amazing character we've been following along since Iron Man 1. And, nowadays we rarely get to see a moment like this. So Tony and Steve had like a heart to heart, and Steve asked him like, "This is the first time you lost a soldier?" And it's like, "We're not soldiers," because Tony never been to like a real fight like this. I mean, like he took on like guys in iron suits or terrorists. That wasn't nothing. He never actually lost like somebody personal like that before. So he's getting hit hard. Because despite him like teasing Coulson, he grew to really appreciate him. So of course he lost a very close friend. But then he comes to a conclusion that Loki is like a diva. He wants the whole divide and conquer thing, but he wants more than that. He wants his name in lights. He wants to make a big show of it. So he comes to like realization, like, oh, he's going to take the Tesseract to Stark Tower. It's like he wants a monument to himself. So while everybody's gearing up, of course we see like Banner, in a hole that Hulk made. He reverts back, and then he makes his way back to New York. While they rally behind, because they want to avenge Phil Coulson's death. So Steve, Natasha, and Barton get on a plane to head to New York, while Iron Man heads off first. And you see like the iconic little moment where there's monologue about who Loki has pissed off, like your brother, the demigod, who lives up to the name, Captain America, a couple of spies. It's like we have a Hulk kind of situation, which nice little circle back at the beginning of Infinity War, where you hear Loki repeat that same "we have a Hulk" line. And of course, Loki tried to possess or mind control Tony, but he had to touch a person's heart in order to do it. But he has this little reactor thing on there, that kind of is like a barrier between uh, the thing and the heart. But it's like it has to be on the heart. It couldn't just be anywhere else on the body. So he ends up trying to toss out Tony out the window, but luckily he subtly put on like these little wrist bracelets that's send out a signal to a new armor that comes flying out, attaches itself, and in a repulsor blast Loki. But Loki already has a mind control Sylvic set up this, okay, they just call it what it is, a sky beam, which you already been getting really tired of at that point, but it was still gonna be like a handful of movies after this one where a lot of movies was really utilizing the whole sky beam trope, and a lot of people got so annoyed. I'm so glad we kind of backed off of all that stuff, because it was like permeating the zeitgeist to a point where it's getting annoying. But it opened like a bigger wormhole that allowed the Chitauri to come tumbling on through. Uh, so Thor shows up and tries to beseech to Loki again, but he's not really listening. Uh, but I think I got ahead of myself on that part. But you know, Hulk and Arlie Banner and Thor shows up. And looking around, we see like a lot of like devastation. These alien creatures starting to like wreak havoc in New York, and Steve tells Banner, like, I think it's time for you to get angry. But that's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry. Leading the most iconic move in the MCU, where Hulk punches this giant Chitauri worm while doing this awesome transition, while Tony shoots some rockets at it as well, taking that thing out. So you get the iconic circle shot, and Steve starts directing orders to everybody respectively, depending on their kind of skill set. And a nice little moment we just tells Hulk smash, and it's like, don't need to be said. It's like he understands, and I love that little grin that Hulk gives. So we see like the Avengers taking on these aliens in their own unique ways, and it's so much fun. And the team up, and it's like a little tracking shot where like Clint is on the rooftops. Of course, little do we know, we see like a young little Kate Bishop looking on in her own little apartment with her rich family, seeing Clint doing his thing. We'll see that much later in the Hawkeye TV show. But I always keep them, I kept that in mind. It's like, wow, Kate Bishop's watching this at this moment in her little apartment right now. Anyway, he's taking shots at people, at the aliens on their little, sky scooters and stuff like that, and taking them out in a very cool trick shot way, while Thor is on top of one, the Chrysler building, and using his lightning to at least as to try to hold like enough of them so it won't be like a complete full force. At least try to trim them out a little bit. While Iron Man is like corralling them so they won't spread too far out from the immediate vicinity of in that little square mile radius of New York. And while Hulk just doing his thing, it's just smashing. But you see like Tony like swooping down, and him and on the ground helping like Steve fighting off Chitauri and doing the whole combo move, and then he flies up. You see Clint doing his little trick shot things. You see Thor and Hulk on top of one of the worm thing, just doing a team up and crashing this thing down. And a nice little funny moment where like Hulk just sucker punches Thor to the side. It's like, it's funny. Yeah, because we want to see that. We know like these two like to fight each other as much as like Hulk likes fighting Wolverine. Uh, but eventually Natasha goes up on top of the roof and tries to figure out a way to shut off that portal. And thanks to Selvig, who's like got knocked upside the head, so he's coming into his senses. He managed to still was himself in knowing, or at least he kept in mind to put in like some kind of safeguard, so he knows how to shut it off. So he has Natasha use the scepter to shut off the thing. But to Fury's dismay, the console sends off orders like a nuclear strike on New York to try to stop this invading force. Despite Fury's protests, he managed to take down one. Two planes about to take off. He managed to take down one, but the other one managed to go off with a payload, or at least one rocket. He tells Tony, who managed to grab the missile and take it through the portal, where he sends it flying towards like the alien spaceship. Of course, this leads into Tony's little PTSD that will lead into Iron Man 3, mind you. But now he sees and then also his motivations in Age of Ultron, trying to make a shield around the world kind of situation. So, of course, we get a moment where like Hulk, his hilarious thing where Hulk smashes Loki and knocks him out. Puny God. That still gets a laugh out of a lot of people. But Hulk manages to catch Tony as he's flying through the portal before he closes off, and then they manage to resuscitate him. And then, of course, Tony suggests that they go for Swarma. But first things first, arrest Loki. So Fury tells the console that Thor is taking Loki and the Tesseract off the planet because neither one definitely, the Tesseract shouldn't be in anybody's hands. Definitely not ours, because we clearly cannot be trusted with that. Which I'm glad he kind of heard out Steve's complaint about that stuff, because he's seen what it can do, and I guess after it opened like a giant wormhole to alien forces that could cause some devastation. It's probably best we don't have this on our planet. So Thor probably had the better. Asgard probably had the better capabilities of holding this thing than we do. At least we know that any bad people on our planet won't get their hands on this thing potentially, and we definitely won't be able to, lose ourselves with this in our position. So Thor and Loki ends up taking the Tesseract as heading back to Asgard, while all the rest of the Avengers go off on their little separate ways. And the movie ends with, the line, the Earthlings will court death. We see like a little classic smirk, the Thanos smirk, which you use the line court death, which I know is an iconic line from the Infinity Gauntlet comic, but you just recently, at least last year, we got finally a live action Lady Death played by Aubrey Plaza, who did a really good job. Really like her. Like the great casting choice for Lady Death, but it's like a few years too late, and it kind of like you need, because Death with Thanos, there has to be they're like too in sync with each other at this point, where at least in terms of like his fondness for Death, it's like you gotta have that tie in at some point. I kind of wish at least drop some remark from Lady Death. Was like, he seemed interesting, but I don't see myself like really being involved with a guy or something. I don't know the payoff to like those people who the comic fans who you originally making all this stuff for. Uh, that pretty much was your core audience in the first place, the comic book fans. Um, but then you also get like an end credit scene with them eating shawarma together. Uh, but yeah, that was Marvel's Avengers. Fun as hell. Still holds up. Like, of course, it isn't perfect, but the minute little issues you might have is so small that it you will be willing to grant to look over because everything else was so good, and they managed to pull off something miraculous that we haven't seen since like back in like the 30s or the 40s, where you see like the universal monsters come together. Even back then, it, as I heard from other people, didn't jive all that well story wise, at least in terms of the narrative, but still did it. But we haven't gotten something like that since then, and pull it off at the same time, and still keeping it going. But anyway, I will be back in a little bit as I'm going back to playing some more Marvel Rivals, learning some Wolverine and trying him out a little bit. But next week I will be reviewing Avengers Age of Ultron. So I have my thoughts on that, but I'll wait till then to talk about it. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the first Avengers film. Have you watched it recently? Does it still hold up for you? Lay out your pros and cons. And I will see you guys later. Take care. Oh, let me take one more bite of my shawarma, just out of celebration. To sit in silence eating your shawarma. See you later, everybody.